Hello everyone, it's Key of W with a devlog for Pod's Itty Bitty Adventure. I've been very inconsistent with devlogging. Sorry, life has happened. That's just how it always is. I'd love to be better at this kind of stuff, but whatever, making a note of it for this project and moving on. This will be the final devlog for Pod's Itty Bitty Adventure because the game is on its way to release. I've sent it off to Steam for review. Once that's done, provided there's no disasters or whatever, the game will come out on August 27th of 2026. That's this year, that's this month even. But if you are watching this video and that date is in the past, you can go check out the game right now. I'll put links in the description for all of that stuff. In the meantime, this final devlog is for me to wrap up my thoughts on production of the game. I would love to do a proper post-mortem after the game comes out, and I've seen how it's done a little bit. A more detailed, in-depth look at everything. But for now, I'll just do a couple little things. So I'm going to start a new game and wander around, see what I can find. One moment, please. So let's start right in the first room of the game here, the Welcome to 1984 room. So this room's gone through a lot of changes over time as decorations and stuff start getting added. But most recently is the button prompts at the bottom, as well as the button prompt here for the map. Pressing M brings up that world map. It tells you what the arrow keys do, tells you can use the enter key to bring up these bad boys and the escape key to bring up the menu. I had resisted putting button prompts in, and now I kind of feel like it was a dumb decision. I initially resisted because I was trying to avoid too much tutorializing. I don't know why I was worried about that, but I was. I've played the type of game that stops you every 5 seconds to talk to you about what buttons to press. And while that works for slower, like RPG type games where you want to sit and read a lot, for a quick, snappy platformer, I really didn't want to stop the player to introduce anything. And so I just didn't have anything at all, but my playtesters would often wonder what the buttons did. They wouldn't know about the world map at all. They didn't know about the pause menu or any of those things, even though I have this how to play menu, which goes over every single thing in the game. But between you and me, gamers don't read. We just don't read. It's not like we can't read. It's just we want to play games, not read games. And so I just had to admit that I just had it wrong and put button prompts in. It doesn't stop the game, doesn't stop the flow. Nobody says it's too intrusive. And all of a sudden, playtesters aren't asking me obvious questions. They're able to just jump in and play the game. So I guess the lesson here for myself is don't overthink it. Don't panic and imagine some future 10 years away where someone complains about a feature you haven't even implemented yet. Just do the obviously correct thing. That's the lesson. Just do that. Okay, next. Okay, jumping ahead a little bit, I think this room is as good as any to demonstrate something. I could go on and on about the art, and I plan to do so in sort of a post-mortem video. I'll try to make it brief here. But I found toward the end of the process that my art style was actually getting in my way. I had a lot of trouble designing readable objects that worked in every color palette. So right now I'm using the full 16 color palette, but there are a bunch of other palettes which only use 4 colors. And early on in development, it didn't matter because the art was even simpler than this. But as I started adding more objects with more colors on them, I had a readability issue. And I was ignoring this issue until very close to finishing the game, at which point I noticed it was pretty bad, and I had to go back and redo a lot of the art. Not completely redo, mostly it was just change the palette and the color choices of every object so they were readable. So for instance here, these 3 medallions, 1, 2, and 3, not my first choice for color contrast on those, but it's the only thing that works with every palette. So if I switch to this, brown, green, and red, all of them are still readable. You can see the outlines, you can read the text on them. Same with this palette. Every palette we choose is going to be, oops, readable at the very least, even though these palettes, being extreme retro CGA palettes, are not exactly easy on the eyes. But that's how it was in the day. So every single one, we can see outlines, we can see the colors inside, all of it's readable. The issue is fixed, but it was a pain in my butt, and I learned a lot about this. I could possibly do an entire video just on the art problem I had, but I will save it for another time. Let's look at the next thing. Okay, jumping down here, I've collected a key running around. It's the circle key, and we can see the information about the circle key by opening up our inventory and looking here. This is a later addition because I realized there was only one chance for players to look at information about items because there's a text box that pops up when you pick it up, but nothing else. And so I figured I needed to have information here. But I'd forgotten one special piece of information, and that's the shield. I added shields very early in development. I thought they would be a bigger part of the game than they ended up being, but shields give you one extra hit. So Pod right now is a one-hit wonder. Any hit, and you're dead, you go back to the latest checkpoint. But if you pick up a shield, you get one extra hit. But I wasn't telling that to the player at any point. You pick up a shield, no text comes up. You have to find out just by, face checking a bullet to find what it does. So I had to add some information. I put it on this page just because there was some empty space at the bottom. So now players can see what it does. I don't think it was like a secret. You can guess that a shield is some kind of protection for you. But I just figured it's better to err on the side of over-explaining things than just letting players guess what things do. And I had gotten multiple questions about what the shields did. I thought it'd be nice to at least include some text to explain it. Oh, hey, jumping ahead a bit, I actually wanted to mention, I'd never really brought this up at any other point. There's all these spikes everywhere, and I've added all these spikes here, right? I'm just going to get rid of all the extra shadows there. I added those spikes because I don't have a crushing mechanic in the game. If you stand on a platform and it pushes you into a ceiling, the game is just going to do whatever with the collision. I think in this case, it'll just push you through the platform. I didn't want to have that. I also didn't want to add a crushing mechanic because I thought, A, it could get a little bit irritating to get crushed without realizing it. And B, this comes up so infrequently in the game, I didn't want it to be a big thing. So my fix for this is every time there are platforms that push upward, there's always spikes on the surrounding ceilings, which takes care of the issue of crushing, because spikes will automatically kill you. So that was my quick fix to get around it without implementing an entirely new mechanic that would only come into play maybe 3 times in the game. All right, let's talk death warps. Early in development of the game, I had an issue with those where you could touch a checkpoint, go get an item, die, get warped back to the checkpoint, and you still have the item. A lot of games allow this sort of thing. I didn't want to. I wanted to make sure that when you collect an item, you have to also escape the trap or whatever where the item is. And so collecting items does not actually permanently save the collection of the item until you hit a checkpoint. Great, got rid of the death warp problem. Then I had another problem, which was not every death post item collection was deliberate. Some people just accidentally died, and they thought it really sucked to die and then lose the item you collected and have to go get it again. So it's like, what do I do about that? So what I've done is make sure there's a lot of checkpoints everywhere in the game, such as this room. So right here is the air jump module, allows you to double jump. And initially I did not have the checkpoint flag here, but people would see the gem on the left side of the room and they would say, aha, I need to get that. Even though, I'm telling you now, you shouldn't do it from this side. You need another upgrade, or at least you really should use another upgrade to get that. But people would go for it anyway. They would die, they'd get sent back, and they would think, I still have the double jump, I'm good. They would go somewhere else and realize they lost the double jump because they didn't touch a flag after collecting it. So by adding this flag here, basically guaranteed no one's going to have the death warp problem, but it also means no one can oh, okay, I'm bad at the game, by the way. That means no one can death warp here. This isn't going to work. You have to collect it again. So I think I've managed to, thread the needle on this particular thing by preventing death warp abuse without causing a problem. This does mean I have to add a lot of checkpoints. I'm okay with that as well because I don't want the game to be too punishing. Even in the harder areas, I don't want you to have to repeat too much content if you get yourself killed in game. So I think I've doubled the amount of checkpoints since the last devlog. Not sure, it didn't really count. But that should fix that issue. Hey, let's talk about shadows real quick. So I implemented shadows like halfway through development, and basically it's black areas of the screen that have something behind them that's only revealed when you walk in, like here. And I added them to hide passageways that I didn't really want players seeing the first time in the room. Maybe you needed an upgrade, maybe it was something, you weren't supposed to go to yet, or maybe it was a passageway I was trying to push you away from, right? I wanted you to go down this ladder instead of to the right, for instance. Um, and I was putting these shadows everywhere. So like this room has two, and the reason is I want you to go down the middle of this room. That's where I want the player to go the first time they enter, but there's nothing preventing you from coming in this way. And if you enter from either side, these shadows will be removed because you're touching them, so to speak. But I did run into troubles by having too many. One of them was it was just kind of irritating to not be able to see everything when you enter a room. And another was once people noticed the shadows, instead of the shadows pushing people away from certain areas, it was pushing them toward those areas. They wanted to see what was behind it. And so if behind the shadow was something dangerous, it really felt unfair because you jump into the shadow and die. An example is in this room that you can't see because I removed the shadow. It used to be that everything to the left of this platform was in shadow because I wanted to hide the diamond, right? I didn't want you to see it your first time in this room. And I didn't want you to see that whole thing. You can't go on that side at this moment. You have to come in from another side. There's no way to get through here. It's just not going to happen. But what would happen is people would see a shadow there on this platform. They'd think, I need to get in there. And so they would try to make a jump. And every time the room would reveal itself, they'd hit the spikes, and then they'd go, that's really unfair. And I had to agree with them. It was really unfair. So I've gone through, I've removed a bunch of shadows. They're still in the game in places where I feel like it can guide you the way I want you to go and or hide super secret stuff. But I had to basically accept the truth that I was a lot less clever than I thought I was, and I should just do the obvious thing and stop trying to be so, I don't know, overly meh, right, with the game design. So another lesson learned. That might be all I want to talk about in the devlog, so I'll meet you again at the title page. So this was a great experience. I loved doing this. Very much a learning process. I'm not a developer. I mean, I made a game, so now I guess you could say I'm a game developer, but that's not what I do in my real day job sort of stuff. I'm not trained in coding and development, those things. So I had a lot of stuff I had to learn to make this game, but the final lesson really was at some point you got to stop futzing and just ship it, right? There are some features that would have been great to add, but for time reasons, as well as just general learning stuff I had to do, never happened. And I'm just making a note of it because this was so fun. Maybe I'll make a second game and I'll think about those features for a second game. Um, but it's just got to come out the way it is. I'm not saying this with a tone of like wistfulness. I don't have any regrets, so to speak, of it. I think I made a good game here. It's very fun. People who have playtested it have really enjoyed it. So I'm very proud of this work. I just know that at a certain point, tweaking it is just taking up extra time, and I should get it out so that you can play it. So it'll be available very soon after I've recorded this. You can get the demo for free at any point. You can wish list all that stuff. If the game is already out, feel free to buy it. Give me a couple bucks. Support my rent habit. No, don't worry about me. The game was not made, to make me financially independent. I'm not expecting that at all. But you can help support me by purchasing this game if you like it, which I hope you do because I think it's pretty good. It is meant to be a shorter experience, at least in general, but I've added achievements. So if you want to do some challenge runs, that is in there. I won't spoil what those are, but there are some secrets to this game. So it is bigger than you think it is, but it is still an itty bitty adventure. Anyway, thank you for following along or for just joining if this is the first thing you've seen of mine. Feel free to, stick around, like, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. And I hope to fill this space with more stuff about the game, in particular a post-mortem / analysis, or maybe both, of the game after it comes out and I have more time to think about it. And then if I do what I want, which is start another game that, is a bit more ambitious, I will start posting about it here, as well as like my Blue Sky page and some other things if I remember to do that. So thanks for watching. I hope to see you around in all those other videos. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Goodbye.